Hey, everybody, thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of No Vacancy Live for today, February 12th, 2025. Thanks for spending some time with us. That's Anthony Melchiorri. I'm Glenn Haussman. So great to see each and every one of you. So, Anthony, believe it or not, when I was at Alice a couple of weeks ago, I got all this great information, so much so I'm still running some new videos about it. So it's a nice little overlap to our conversation since that was a hotel investment conference. We're really going to be talking about that hotel investment landscape today. What's really going on behind the scenes as opposed to what popular chatter is all about. What do you think about that?
Well, we got the man, the myth, the legend, a dear friend of mine who's going to be able to talk to that of what's going on in development. But just, Glenn, it also is very important that you understand. If you ever wanted to ask a question, what it's like to work with Anthony Melchiorri in redeveloping, repositioning hotels, this is the man to ask. He will tell you the truth, too. He will not make me look good, I promise.
Oh, well, it sounds like I have a lot that Dave Johnstone and I can talk about right after this podcast because Anthony's going to sign off right away. Then you and I we'll just dish it up, Dave. How are you, man?
I'm good. Good. How you doing? Good.
Great. Thanks for seeing us. So you've known him for all these years. Why on earth would you still come on this podcast?
Oh, we go back. We have a lot of stories we could share.
Yeah.
Probably not all for
live.
Right.
But so I met Dave. I'll tell you how I met Dave, and then we can talk about Dave's background a little bit, and then we can talk about the state of the industry and investment and development and where we are, because he really is one of the best experts in our business. So Dave and I was at the Lucerne Hotel, and I interviewed for a hotel in New York City in Times Square, the Algonquin, and didn't really take the job the first time. Well, they didn't want me. They went through 27 people first. Then they finally got to me. And then I didn't want them. And then one day on the corner of 79th and Amsterdam, I don't remember if you remember this, Dave, and I'm standing outside Nice Matan on the outside on the corner. We have chairs outside. So I'm standing there and I'm dealing with a guest or something. And all of a sudden he taps me on the shoulder and I say, "Hey, I remember you," because he interviewed me like 6 months before.
Right.
And he goes, "Yeah, so you're going to be working for me." I was like, "I am," and the rest is history. Is that story? Does that sound familiar, Dave?
Pretty accurate. Yeah, we went with a Denver-based operator, and things didn't work out with them, and really needed someone with your local expertise and someone who knew New York. And I remembered you from the first interview, and we had a great partnership.
I didn't know that. I didn't know there was somebody that didn't know the market, and he went in there. I call those people my stunt doubles.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of we sort of turned the Algonquin into a bit of a lifestyle hotel.
Right.
Before the word people, came out with the word lifestyle. I mean, it had such a phenomenal history with the New Yorker magazine starting there and the old round table. And with Anthony, we kind of brought it back to life. It was the first hotel in New York to allow women to stay in. It had all that literary connections, historic, and remember the $10,000 Martini?
Well, he's never let us forget.
Yeah. So that started there. And we had the cabaret, and we had Diana Krall to come back, and it was a great partnership. That was our first deal together, and then we went on to do Nickelodeon.
Yeah, and the Dome family gave me my first GM job, but Dave Johnstone gave me everything, gave me my career, because he just put me in the job and said the greatest words anyone's ever said to me, and I repeat them almost on a weekly basis. Don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness. And I turned to Dave and I go, "You have no idea what you just said."
Yeah,
and it was true. And he would. Dave Johnstone and Miller Global were the best bosses because they held me accountable without micromanaging me. And anybody that knows my personality, that's the way to handle me. It's just like, hold me accountable, ask me all the questions in the world, but leave me alone. And it was a great relationship, and literally gave me a big part of my career and got me ready to do everything else. So Thank you, Dave. So, Dave, why don't you tell everybody about your kind of background, and then we'll talk about where we are in the face of what's happening in the investment community.
Yeah, I'll do it real quick. But I started in Chicago, undergrad, Michigan State. Went to Chicago with Laventhal and Horwath. Some people remember that name. In the Denver office, went to them in '79. Opened a Denver office in 1981. Went and got my master's degree at night at University of Denver in real estate and construction management. Moved on to Prudential in '87. Came back to Denver in '89 with Sage Hospitality. I was a principal there for 7 years, and then went to Hong Kong with Marriott.
Wow.
And in 1996, spent 3 years there. Came back and joined Miller Global at the end of '98. Which is a private equity firm, basically building and flipping with funds.
Mm-hmm.
We one of the assets we bought and renovated and flipped was the Algonquin in Manhattan. And so I joined them in '89. I stayed with them for 17 years. And then 10 years ago, this year in 2015, I joined McWhinney. Which has a different business model because we've never sold a hotel. We've been in business 34 years now, and our source of capital is high net worth families and individuals and folks that are looking for, maybe a side strategy in real estate, and they like to hold on to assets and focus on the cash flow. So. We've grown the portfolio from around 7 properties to 22.
Wow.
And because we don't sell anything, it's only addition. There's no subtraction.
Yeah, no, totally. I get that. Are you, but what are you focused on specifically in hospitality real estate? Are you like select service folks, full service folks, mix of things? How was your approach?
We kind of evolved.
Mhm.
Originally, we were in the select service. We partnered with Stonebridge for our first few hotels, and then we partnered with Sage Hospitality for a couple hotels. We did the Denver Union Station project that opened in 2015, won a ULI Global Award for historic preservation. And then we kind of pivoted to doing more mid-tier, and most recently a luxury lifestyle.
Wow.
During COVID, we acquired the Proper Hotel in Austin, the Proper Hotel in Santa Monica. 2 years ago in April, we bought the old Calneva resort owned by Frank Sinatra.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
And it's got a casino and the Frank Sinatra Dinner Theater. It was actually the last
That's
place.
on the border of California, Nevada, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And we're converting that to a proper resort and casino, and that's under construction now, underway. And our focus has been more on the luxury lifestyle because in our estimation that the greater flexibility in terms of room rates. What we're seeing is, we've heard it at the conference that expenses have continued to grow at a pace higher than revenues, and certainly in the middle tier, labor costs, taxes, and insurance are the 3 things that have kind of really hurt the portfolio. We're experiencing that as well as everyone else, but we're making the most profit right now on the luxury lifestyle because we're still able to grow the ADR, and occupancies haven't really suffered.
And you have more opportunities for additional spend on the property for those guests. So you're really able to look at it more of a total revenue per customer, as opposed to when you're at a select service hotel, when you're really trading rooms and hoping to sell maybe some chips and a beer.
Yeah, and that customer is really not looking for, they don't mind spending a couple extra dollars. They want availability. They want to go when they want to go. And if it's a little bit more expensive with the select services, they're shopping rate a lot more.
100%. You're both spot on there. And that total RevPOR we look at, and yeah, your EBITDA margin may come down a little bit, but your NOI, your dollars are much higher. And,
Right.
And like you said, with the total revenue spend, everyone knows we all use the word experiential now and lifestyle and all that. I kind of felt like we were doing that a little bit ahead of the curve as a company, and continuing that. And I moved into a strategic advisor role here. I'll be, starting to slow down a little bit.
Mhm.
Brought in Omar Palacios from who was working for family office in California, John Pritzker and Giolo Capital.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I'll be winding down slowly but surely, but still
Because Glenn, even though Dave looks younger than me, he's actually slightly older than me.
68. Yeah.
Dang.
all that running around,
Yeah, no, I get it. I'm starting to feel tired with the constant running. I actually have a 3-week straight trip coming up at the beginning of March. So I'm trying to strategize how I'm going to not drop dead in the middle of it somehow. So I get where you're coming from, Dave. So you're focused more on higher end properties. You have more, more flexibility with the spend and stuff like that. That's great. But what types of assets are you really looking for? Are you looking for existing assets to build? And how does that current economic environment shape that particular opinion?
So right now, getting capital for development is extremely difficult. So we are not really pursuing development at this moment.
Yep.
Focus since COVID has been acquisitions.
Yep.
And we 2 weeks ago we bought the Thompson Hotel here in Denver in a JV with our
Really?
partner Hyatt.
Wow.
And we have under contract an acquisition 3-pack on the East Coast that we will close in April. And so still focused on that. Lenders don't want to loan on new construction. And, candidly, what's happened to some degree with us is that our high net worth families who have historically been
Mm-hmm.
funding our developments up until COVID,
Yep.
realizing now, hey, I can get cash flow right away instead of waiting 3 years. And they're like,
Right.
yeah, just keep buying. And so that's also what's driving. I mean, I can raise capital for acquisitions at the end of
So
the
I
day.
was just talking to somebody this morning, and not to talk politics, but the development is not only hindered by expensive money, but it's now being hindered potentially that the contractors don't want to give you a price on a build 2, 3 years from now because the tariffs on steel are going to
Yeah.
potentially increase prices.
Who
So
knows?
people
Maybe
are putting,
Canadian lumber's next. You
so
don't know.
For sure.
what was that?
And
I said maybe
Canadian lumber.
Canadian lumber could be next. You just don't.
Right, so they're actually in the contracts, they're writing in stipulations based on the tariffs, and a lot of people don't want to sign those deals, and a lot of contractors don't want to sign without them. So what do you think about that? You think
I
it's very temporary, or do you think it's something that's going to hurt the next 24 months?
I think it will further stall development, frankly. I mean, we're getting a lot of steel from Mexico. We are getting a lot of lumber from Canada for our multifamily projects, and we're writing tariffs into our budget. Calneva, which is under construction, we just did a revised estimate with some subs, and we're putting in the tariffs because you have to, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So do you think that again, not, you don't have a crystal ball, but do you think that that's going to be temporary? And because he is a developer himself, so I would imagine that he's getting a lot of blowback from the people around him that this is going to hurt development potentially.
Yeah, my personal opinion is it seems like we're just doing, the administration is doing a lot of things, but they don't really understand the consequences. And once they do understand some of the consequences, then to your point, it's going to stunt development because we just heard this morning interest rates are probably going to stay flat. Inflation.
Well, yeah, because it looks like inflation is a little bit higher than expected for January. Those numbers just came out this morning. Dave, sorry.
Right. So all right.
So you're right. So it's gonna keep.
Right. So I just wanted to put it out there that that's going to be a talking point in the next 6 months. I'm sure on this show, Glenn, we're
Yeah,
going
of
to hear a
course.
lot about that, and a lot of people are going to have strong opinions about that. And it has nothing to do with politics. It has to do with what's on the
Expensive.
ground.
Yeah.
Because if that's what's going to happen, it's just going to give us another hurdle. But in our business, we're used to hurdles. But at the end of the day, who's going to pay for it? We all know who's going to pay for it, right? And that becomes a problem because how much can we really increase rate, especially as we were talking in the mid-scale market. And If those start hurting that luxury guest, then that starts hurting your average rate in the luxury market as well. So there's a lot of stuff to yet to be seen in the next 24, 36 months, and we'll see. But there's so many things, so many headwinds that hotel business is always, dealing with, and this is just another one that will survive and will be fine. But it's just something to think about. And I really thought, if I had a crystal ball, I thought a couple of years ago, I said, once we cut the rates the first time and then the second time, you're going to start seeing development. And I was wrong, completely wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think the difficulty is obviously operating expenses have continued to go up, right?
That's right.
So I think the other benefit of the luxury lifestyle opportunity is you can do residential, and you can hopefully use some of the profits off residential to reduce your basis on the hotel side.
Yeah, particularly at higher end projects, a lot of developers use that strategically in order to help be able to fund those products. We see that a lot in urban cores. We've seen that with resorts, particularly, I mean, homes, and even maybe a timeshare component there as well.
Yeah.
Anthony?
And labor's become so expensive, especially, Dave, think about what a general manager in a luxury property made 20 years ago, and think about what a general manager makes now in a luxury property.
Yeah, no, I won't say it's mind blowing, but it's I could tell you we're hiring we're doing a member club at one of our properties, and it's going quite well actually. But that club member manager is making more than most of my general managers.
Right.
So,
Right.
so I mean that's where we are today, right?
And the people have been around a long time, who've been doing this a long time, I know my friend in New York City, I won't tell you his salary, but his salary is mind blowing.
Yeah.
Yes, Dave, more than I made that year that you said I made too much money.
Well, when it's incentive driven, and I have no problem, because if you're making money, I'm making money, right?
I won't quote Dave. I won't put him on the hook like that. But
That's too fun.
Okay, so let's go back for a second, right? We talked about investment. We talked about kind of what's going on. Everybody's kind of heard that, but you had just an incredible career, and you really have, and you still look the same. You still have that white crisp shirt. You still have the same energy. You still have the same attitude. So coming up, and you're looking at people that younger people coming out of a school that want to do what you want to do, because everybody that's going to those Ivy League schools wants to be the next Dave Johnstone. What's one advice you would give them? And then I have a follow-up question. So what's the one piece of advice you would give somebody wanting to follow in your footsteps?
Yeah, I think starting in a analyst role as either a broker or one of the hotel brands, underwriting as many hotel assets as you possibly can in different markets, in different products, will give you a foundation, a really, really strong base. And you can go from there. I mean, so my job, it's changed most recently, primarily because of our growth objectives. I focused mostly on business development, but we have an asset management team. I was asset managed, actually started, I was the first president and co-founder of Hospitality Asset Managers Association way back in 1990. But I put my time in that area of the business, and then I worked for the brand, worked for Ritz-Carlton when they got purchased by Marriott in Asia. So I learned a lot of different aspects of the job, from appraisals to development, to business development. And I tell people, just as long as you're continuing to learn, if your learning curve is like this, then great, you'll continue to be excited. But when your learning curve starts to flatten out, then you got to make a move and do something different.
Yep.
But I've loved this industry. I still love it. The business has been no 2 days the same, no two projects the same, no two markets the same.
Yep.
different.
Right. And things change all the time, from customer behavior to new building strategies, product portfolios that are out there, all sorts of fun and interesting things out there.
And
Anthony?
Dave, what is it like when you develop a hotel, and you developed a really big hotel about right after I left the company, out in, believe Texas. What is it like after you do the deal, and no one that's working at the hotel understands the pain you go through to get the money, to get the deal. No one ever sees it. It's not glamorous. It's not talked about, but it's painful. I've seen it firsthand. It's very painful. I've been part of it firsthand. But the day you actually see the first guest walk into a project that you thought about and you worked so hard to finance, what is that feeling like?
Yeah, it's awesome, right? Because it takes so long. Doing development like the JW Marriott in San Antonio was 1,000 rooms. We did some very unique things there. We had two golf courses, the spa. We're on 650 acres, and
Wow.
but you don't know until it's been open. We broke ground. And I'll never forget this, because we broke ground on that asset in June of 2007. And 3 months later, at the closing dinner, we had 10 lenders. At the closing dinner in New York, it had started. The GFC had started, but nobody knew what it was. And all the lenders got together after dinner. And had we had tried to close that in October, November of '07, it would have been too late. We would not have been able to get that loan done. We were fortunate that the GFC occurred '08, '09, and we didn't. It took us 2 years to build, and we opened in January of 10. And I go back and I look at the pro forma. I still remember to this day, I had pro forma 20 million of NOI and 21 million of debt. We were going to lose $1 million. And what ended up happening was we did 14 million of NOI, but because LIBOR was zero,
Right.
we did 9 million of debt. And so my debt ended up being below. We ended up making money instead of losing money.
Holy
only
cow.
because LIBOR was zero.
It's when I was an asset manager for Tishman after I left you guys, and I didn't know what LIBOR was. And then one day I was in a meeting with John Paulson, who was my assistant. And I said, dude, we made $1 million more and I can't find it. And he looked at me, he goes, it's LIBOR. And he goes, it's down. And I was like, oh, of course. And then I had to go look up what's LIBOR, right? So that's what kind of asset manager I was in the beginning. But we just had somebody on our show a couple of months ago that is the general manager. What's that? The Mike Stengel's working on that project out in
The
California.
Gaylord out in the San Diego area.
Yeah, what's the general manager's name?
Oh, I don't remember off the top of my
Well,
head.
the general manager of that hotel worked with you guys on opening the San Antonio project. He was the food and beverage guy, and he had nothing but praise for you guys, just like I always do.
Scott Siebert, does that name
Yeah.
sound familiar?
Yeah,
believe
totally.
that was
That's
his
it.
name.
Yep, you just beat me to it. Yeah.
Yeah, that was his name. And I also listened to this. I was yesterday, I was at an event, I was a speaker, and a general manager comes over to me and he goes, Anthony, pleasure to finally meet you. He goes, I said, he goes, I was the general manager after you left Nickelodeon. I can't remember the guy's name. He told me, but he was the general manager. And the first thing I said to him, I said, the CFO, he was the only person I didn't terminate, and he hated me. And he looked at me and goes, yep. I can't remember his name. I just thought that was really funny. But
Nickelodeon was a unique experience, though, wasn't it?
A lot of people in this industry, when you walk into a room and you say to someone, like if you and I are talking, hey, so-and-so, we will probably both have different experiences with him or her, but have the same opinion, good or bad, right? No matter what room I walk into and I mention your name, everybody has nothing but great things to say. And that's atypical. And that's so what do you see different of people? So I asked you what advice you would give. What do you see different of people coming up today because like if you and I walked onto any site in the world, right? Any site. Between you and me, you make the deal, I run it. There's nothing we couldn't do, right? But we've done everything in this business. There's nothing I haven't done in this business. There's nothing you haven't done in this business. Coming out of school now, what is people's mindset? When our mindset coming out of school or getting into this business was just hunger and we got to win, whatever that meant. And if we had to, sweep crap or whatever we had to do, we did it. Is that the same mindset coming out of school?
I think with a lot of kids, it is. I mean, what I started doing, Anthony, to get the best students, I started teaching. Started teaching at the University of Denver here, the hotel school. It's physically close, even though my alma mater was Michigan State. I got involved with the hotel school, got my MBA there, and I started teaching basically real estate 101 for hotels because they didn't have a class like that. And what that did was, we didn't have a ton of kids that signed up, but people that were interested in it signed up. And I typically have somewhere between 10 and 15 kids, small class. I use that to cherry pick. I would find a good junior, then I bring him in as an intern, and then I've hired 4 or 5 kids.
Wow.
Started as interns, and now, in fact, one young lady is going to be is kind of taken over for me. She's been with me for 7 years, and the kids today, they're just different, right? They grow up with the cell phone, and they can. It's just different mindset, right? And today, our HR department came out with hey, we're going back to a 4-day work week. We've been at 3-day work week, and the coming to the whole office thing. I mean, I can't do my job if I don't come to the office. I mean, I have to be in the office because I'm walking up and down, talking to people all the time. Hey, this happened. What are we doing about it? Or, you can't schedule a Zoom call to talk about something that happened that needs your input right away.
Right.
It's different. But what I've done is I've hired the best and brightest. I cherry pick. I teach a class, I cherry pick, bring them in as intern, and then I hire them full time.
That's a good strategy. And thanks for reinforcing what I've been telling my kids. Get to know your professors, and opportunities can happen. Oh, Suzanne is applauding backstage.
Listen, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah.
And I don't care what school you went to. I don't care what your grades were. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And if you go into Dave Johnstone's class and you pay attention, you just got really friggin' lucky. Because there's nothing you can't do for that person. Like I always say, if I give you my cell number, use it. I didn't give it to you to waste your time. I gave it to you to use it and use me and use my resources because you know better than anyone. It's like, how many deals have you got? I won't tell the story, but the deal of how the Algonquin got sold was exactly that. It was somebody showing up, okay, and somebody breaking down the door and saying, I want this asset. And I don't care what happened before, but I want it. And literally one cab ride to JFK changed the outcome.
That's a great story. Well, how that deal came about.
Can I tell the story? Can we tell the story?
Yeah, tell the story. Yeah.
Okay, so we can tell it together and tell me if you remember it the way I remember it. We're at the hotel. I'm sitting in a banquet with Mr. Miller. I believe you were there. You were there, right?
Yep. We're having breakfast.
Sitting there, and then this gentleman comes in when we're basically down. We're down in the red
Talking
zone.
about the offers we have in hand, right?
Right. We have an offer that I believe that we're about to take, and this gentleman basically breaks into the hotel, comes up and asks to speak to, I believe you and Mr. Miller. I can't remember. It was just Mr. Miller or it was you and Mr. Miller?
Yeah, no, I was there. Yep.
Right. And then you got to another table. Then you came back to my table, and then he went away. And then I guess you guys said no, or like, hey, we got somebody.
No. Yeah.
And then as you got up, he says, hey, Mr. Miller, can I take a ride to the airport with you?
No, he knocked on the window. We were in the car, we had our car going to the airport. This guy comes running down the street, knocking on the window. Jimmy Miller rolls the window down. He says, can I ride with you to the airport? I'm on the phone with my brother. Can we just talk some more? And so we let him in the car, and we're driving to the airport, and we cut the deal.
That's amazing.
And this person we're talking about, we won't name him, but the person we're talking about is one of the biggest names in our industry.
Yeah.
Okay.
He taught me a valuable lesson.
Right, and it's the grind. I told my daughter the word of 2025 is grind. This gentleman already bought it, sold it, invented it. Already had hotels. Already was rich. Already had everything he needed. But he didn't give it to an asset manager or to an assistant. He got his sneakers on and ran to the car, and what's funny about that, I get a call from, I believe you, I get a call and go, hey, so-and-so is bringing this team in today and they want due diligence, open the books for them. And I was like, yes, sir. I hang up the phone, I call the controller and I go, we got to open up the books, we got to do due diligence for this company right now. So I'm sitting at the table, I don't know if you know the story, so literally in a couple of hours, there's like 10 people in there. I'm sitting at the end of the table, sitting with the controller, and all of a sudden, they start pounding me with questions. And you know, and you can attest to it, I knew the P&L better than the controller did. I knew the numbers better than anybody in the hotel. So they're sitting there and they're hitting me with questions. I'm answering all of them easily like this. And then they said something about a parking charge. And they said, well, I'm looking at code so-and-so, and it doesn't seem that charge, like, it doesn't make sense. I said, well, you're looking at the wrong code. That's not the parking car. And I'm not looking at the paper. The parking lot code is whatever it was. And they're
Right.
like, how do you know what the parking lot code is? And they kept me, remember? They never keep the general manager. And after you guys sold it, they kept me on. And then you called me and brought me out
Then I
somewhere
called you
else.
and brought you to Nickelodeon.
But that is exactly what we're talking about. And I'm really glad you said what you just said, because I say it all the time. Kids today are no different than our generation. There were losers in our generation that were lazy, and we know them. We know, if you look at your high school yearbook, you know who you thought were going somewhere, but they didn't go anywhere. And then, like me, I was most likely to get arrested or be dead by now. And I think I did something with my life. So you never know. So every generation has those people that grind and those people that don't. So I don't think the young generation today is any different. People around me, young people around me, work really freaking hard. My girls work really hard. I know your girls work hard.
Absolutely. Yep.
It's just a matter of opportunity. So I don't think it's any different. It's just they can get to information quicker than us. And our job is to teach them. Yes, it's important to Google, Gemini, whatever you need to do. But at the end of the day, nothing takes takes the place of communicating in person, one-on-one.
Yeah, and I always tell them, if in person is always best, telephone second, don't text. If you can call somebody, don't text. Call them. You get better results.
Okay, so good. You have any questions? I have one more follow-up question before we end. Do you
All
have
right, go
any more
ahead.
questions?
No, go for it.
Well, just to end. So is there one story, Anthony Melchiorri story, that you can tell that that lingers in your mind? That
I have a bunch, really, but I think um, the one thing I remember the most was the $10,000 martini, when we had someone come in and actually buy it and propose. And because I'm like, hey, no one, this was the engagement ring inside a martini. A guy proposed, we had this offering, and Anthony put it together. It was great. It was
Yeah.
magical, right? Because we had the blue bar, and we had what's the cabaret?
the Oak Room.
Yeah, Oak Room, and we, this was an idea, and I'm like, okay, one of Anthony's creative things, and yeah, someone actually called up and said, hey, I'm going to propose to my girlfriend. I've got this ring, $10,000 engagement ring, and we're going to put it in the martini, and she's going to discover it. I was there to see it. So it was fantastic. It was an emotional moment for them. And I just thought it was so cool.
Yeah, and
Bizarre.
and I'll kind of just give a little bit behind the scenes of that. At that point, it was already on David Letterman. It already blew up. Everybody's like, "Oh my God!" The press release blew us up. We were on China TV. We were everywhere. And then I called, and this is what is really important for young managers to know. Most of my creative ideas weren't mine. It was me pushing people. Stay Free on Your Birthday at Nickelodeon was Laura Knipe, by me pushing Laura Knipe. Remember that campaign? That was me pushing Laura Knipe, one of our sales coordinators. This was me pushing my PR company, which I fired 3 times before they came up with the idea. So you don't always have to have the idea, but you have to hold people to an incredibly high standard and get a result from them. And that was Carla Cacavalli and her team that came up with the result. And I was like, that's going to blow us up. After we blew up, I call her up and I go, but now we have to have somebody buy it. And she literally tells me years later, she was cursing me out after she hung up the phone. And I said, I said, but it can't be a gimmick and it's got to be real. And somebody she knew was getting married and they bought our martini. And then the next day it was on the front page of the Daily News and blew up again
Awesome.
because I didn't take my foot off the gas. And that was a repositioning. You know, Dave and Miller Global spent the money to renovate the hotel. We spent only $3 million to do the entire hotel. We shut it down 28 days. But at the end of the day, I was embarrassed that I didn't have a plan to launch the hotel. And as soon as we reopened, remember we closed it because Matilda went on vacation?
Yes.
So Matilda went on vacation, so we got a celebrity handler to bring Matilda out, the cat, closed for 28 days. And when we reopened, we launched it, and the Algonquin was back. Because to your point, we were the first lifestyle hotel, really, thinking about it back then. But we were the original lifestyle from 1907, that we just didn't use the word lifestyle. The lobby and the connection to the lobby was in 1907. Everybody forgot that. Like, that lobby was an amusement park, you know, with the round table. And so they invented kind of a cool lobby back in 1907.
You know, another interesting story that I'll mention that you did, that you got me thinking about, was I remember when I brought you out, we were talking about you coming on board. You said to me, "Hey, there's 40 million square feet of office space within a 3-block radius. If I can't fill this hotel, knocking on doors in a 3-block radius, then I'm no good." And I'm like, yeah, shit, hell yeah, that's right. I didn't even think about that. You know, drawing correlation between office space and room nights.
Mhm.
And then you signed up the Travel Channel and what's the shoot?
CBS down there in that
No,
area.
the leisure, Travel and Leisure magazine. You know, the
Mhm.
parent company, and you know we had some great.
We were
Yeah,
number one in RevPAR in 8 months. We
yeah. I
were,
mean, you know, what's interesting, frankly, because those days I was trying to manage a market, right? You buy it, renovate it, flip it, and you're trying to time markets. Here at
Right.
McWinney, we don't try to time markets. We look at it for the long term. We build it for the long term, and we never sell. So our focus is to get it up, stabilize, and then put 10-year fixed debt. At Miller, we did everything with floating
Right.
interest rate, and it was how quickly can we get it up going, because we got paid on IRR. Here we don't get paid on IRR. We get paid on just cash flow splits, basically.
So
so before we wrap it up, Glenn, I just want to, and I'll let you finish it.
I was
just
going to
wanna-
before we
I
wrap it
just
up.
want to thank Dave, because something that just comes back to me
Yeah.
is you were one of the best bosses I've ever had. And I don't want to know the stories and I don't need to hear the stories, but thank you for all the times you defended me.
No, you did. You made us a lot of money. At the end of the day, that's what it's about, right? We sold that hotel, and I don't want to give specifics, but we made a boatload in a very short span of time. Of course, we bought it right after 9/11, and we went into New York. We bought it when everybody was running from New York, and I don't know if you remember, Anthony, but we had to have terrorism insurance for 2 years before that whole, under the federal government thing happened, because Times Square and our area was a target zone.
Yeah.
Yeah, we paid that insurance. I think it was 180 grand for 2 years. But at the end of the day, New York always comes back, and it bounced back super fast. We renovated and flipped it for a huge IRR and a huge equity multiple.
And what's interesting about that is we all know hotels are bought and sold not only on the real estate but on the P&L. So the market came back, the P&L was good, you sold it, and everything just lined up perfectly. But if the market came back and the P&L was crap, and you guys didn't invest in the money and didn't give me the freedom to be me, because that's another thing that's happened. I talked about it yesterday when I was on stage, and I was like, the general managers are getting the keys taken away from them and the steering wheel. Literally, they have no control anymore. If I was to work in that environment, I would quit 100 times. Like, you gave me the control. Like, I didn't have to work for an asset manager that was up my butt all the time, even though he was up my butt, but we had a good relationship, and you always took the side of who was right, not him or me, whoever was right. And usually I won because I had a really good point to my argument. And today, we need to give more control and creativity to general managers. I just don't see the creativity. And there's 100 other things that we did together I just don't see the creativity coming out of that relationship with the general manager and the owner, because the general manager is scared.
Yeah. I think when you do independence and when you're doing luxury lifestyle, you can't follow a rule book, right? The guest is, we got to do whatever the guest wants, right? You got to make them happy.
Mhm.
But going back to Algonquin, I still think about the numbers, right? We bought that for $220 a key
Wow.
and flipped it for $440 a key. Now we bought it in 2001. I'm sorry, 2002. And then 3 years later flipped it. But that's a long time ago. But still, today the land is worth $220 a key.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but I remember that well. And the marketing ideas of creativity, you can't have that unless there's a relationship with the owner of trust. And at the end of the day, I earned your trust, and then I got more freedom. And when you get more freedom, it's fun. I had so much fun. As a matter of fact, I remember, it just hit me in the head. I remember when you were announcing me at the Nickelodeon, and I pied you in the face. Do you remember?
Yes, I remember getting pied. Yes. It was better than getting slimed. I didn't want to get slimed.
I remember that. Yeah, we had a lot of fun together, but you can only have
Yeah.
fun when you have freedom and you have trust.
Well, and
Everybody
incentive
does
was
their
there,
job.
right? We gave you basically a cut, right? And that's how it should be, right? The person that makes the most decisions should have an incentive-based compensation where they can make a lot of money
Wait,
if
so
they
okay,
have the
so I've
freedom
never
to eat.
told this. I've never told this story publicly, so I'll tell it since you brought it up. Got my bonus, got my salary, and then when you sold it, you guys gave me another check, and that made me cry. And that other check matched my bonus.
Wow.
And it wasn't in a contract, because I don't know if you remember this, I don't sign contracts. When I take over a hotel, I don't sign contracts. I say either fire me or give me money. And I'm never worried about, because if I have to be like, if I'm signing a contract, I'm nervous that, if you don't like me, fire me. But if you like me, give me money. And when I left, I'll never forget that you guys treated me like family, and and you know what? Someone else told me a story just like that. Okay, that when they sold the hotel, you guys took care of them. And you don't see that in this business. When I told a friend of mine, I told the president of the Waldorf Astoria, Eric Long, he didn't believe me. He looked at me, he goes, "What?" I go, "Yep." He didn't believe me. So
Well,
Well, it worked
wonderful
because
seeing
we
you,
were
my
able to
friend.
get you to come back. We were able to get you to come to Nickelodeon. So, not in addition to you earning it, it did create a little bit of loyalty, and we, as
Yeah,
you
and
said,
then and that kept
it's
me.
fun to make some
When I
money
got
doing.
the call to come to Nickelodeon, I didn't really want to go. I was like, "Son of a bitch!" That's why they gave me the check.
too
No, but
funny. All right, that's probably a
that
good
was fun.
place to.
And every
Yeah.
kid
Yep.
at Nickelodeon got slimed because of us, because they wouldn't let us slide the kids. We got the bucket at 4 o'clock, and the water would come down. I said, "No, we got to put slime in." And so we got green water, but I had to get approval from the head of Nickelodeon, because they said
To be edible.
slime was very personal. I said, when that kid goes home and didn't get slime, that's not very personal. So every day at 4 o'clock, we figured out how to slime the entire pool. And everybody in the hotel
Good.
at 4 o'clock, whatever they were doing, if they were at Disney World, they would all come back at 4 o'clock to be slimed.
Yep. That's the best. Awesome. Dave, thank you so much for being here. What a fun show this has been.
Thanks for asking me. It's great to see you, Glenn, and Anthony. Always great to see you. So
Hopefully I'll see you soon, my
appreciate
friend.
you. Yep,
Yeah.
appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Hey, and I appreciate all of you guys for taking a look at us today. Make sure that you download all of our shows. You could check them out wherever you get your social medias, wherever you get your podcasts. All right. So let's end this thing. What do you think? All right, everybody.
Best boss I ever had, Dave Johnstone.
That's awesome. We'll see you back here next time. That's tomorrow. And until then, remember, you've got one life. So blaze on and
Be kind to yourself.
see you later. All right.
I
So
like that.